Hello, I'd like to welcome you to this webinar presented by Skills Lab Training and Coaching for Onboarding for Success. And this is a joint presentation with Skills Lab and with the Arkansas Small Business and Technology Development Center. Our presenters today are Beth Pittman and Christy Martin, and I will give them a few minutes to tell you a little bit about themselves and their training organization. As I said, this is being recorded for educational purposes, and it will be available on the ASB TDC website, the University of Arkansas website. So without anything else, let's go ahead and get started. And I'm going to turn it over to Christy Martin.
Hi. Well, thanks, Julie. We appreciate ASB TDC for having us here. We have been clients of theirs, and as many of you guys are, and now we're so fortunate to be able to partner with them on sharing some of our expertise and sharing it with all of you guys. So onboarding is a topic that Beth and I both are really passionate about. We have a background as recruiters. We've been recruiting in various capacities for about the last 20 years, each of us. And so we bring that to a company that we created several years ago called Skills Lab Training and Coaching. And what we do at Skills Lab is we bring confidence and just kind of instill possibility into companies and people that are looking to make their next career steps. And so we do that through a variety of aspects of coaching, helping to connect people in the right ways, identifying gaps, developing programming and workshops. And we work with everyone from students to professionals that are making career steps and choices. And then we work with a lot of businesses, especially small businesses that are trying to upskill their workforce with leadership skills, identifying career paths and opportunities, and just helping people generally build the best opportunities for their employees. And so onboarding is something as recruiters that Beth and I have seen for many years. It either kind of makes or breaks the end of our process. We worked really hard to get the right fit and the right person, and to get that person across the finish line to accept an offer and start a position. And then we've seen onboarding go very wrong in some cases, and kind of break down all the hard work that you did to kind of get that person in the door. So we feel really passionate about this topic, and feel often that this is a topic that is the back end. It's not thought about until it's right up on you, and sometimes not thought about at all. And I'm sure each of you might have a scenario that you can think of where maybe you've not been onboarded very well, or you've walked into a position and you didn't have that person that was there to kind of give you the download on how to get things and where to get your needs met, and who to talk to and things like that. So we're going to walk through some suggestions today that we've seen work very well, and that we coach a lot of businesses on to help them make this a better process. And the goal would be ultimately to retain more employees, which we all care about right now. So Beth and I are happy to answer your questions as we go along. If you want to put those in the chat, Beth is monitoring that, and so she'll kind of bring those out as they pertain. But so feel free to ask a question if you have one. So let's get into it. We want to talk about why should you care about onboarding. Again, I think this is a process or a function that is often thought about at the last minute, or it's just kind of thrown together as somebody, oh my gosh, they're starting on Monday. Like, do we have all their stuff? Are we ready for that person to be here? What are we going to have them do? Who are we going to have them talk to? And so why should you put more time and effort into the process of onboarding? And ultimately, hopefully it leads to a couple of things, or success measures. And engaged employees would be one of those. We all hear the buzz right now about quiet quitting and the Great Resignation. And, there's just all kinds of things that have hit us over the last 2 to 3 years that have caused changes in employee engagement and what employees are looking for. And so being sensitive and aware of those as an employer is a big deal. And hopefully out of a good onboarding process and helping people to assimilate into your organization in a quicker and better way is going to give you some more engaged employees. There's studies every year that are put up by Gallup that look at how engaged employees are. And so every year they measure those numbers. And in 2021, actually the numbers dipped for the second year in a row, and they haven't done that in a decade. So we're seeing a downward trend of employee engagement, and that really is changing a decade's worth of work that people have done to build up how engaged people are in their jobs. So there's a lot of signs there that employers need to pay attention to. And we feel like onboarding people appropriately and in a great way can help to just set the right tone for employees. We do a whole talk on engagement of employees. If you want to hear more on that, we can get into that another time, but that's a whole topic. A strong culture. You've done a lot of work to build up a culture within your business that you want to see sustain, and you've instilled your values, and you try and instill that within how you serve your customers and how your employees work. And so building a strong culture, you want someone that's going to come in and value that as well. And an employee is looking for values within a company that align with their own personal values. So you're wanting to make sure that that match is good on the front end, but then also that you're giving them the tools and the information that they need to buy in to what you're trying to do as a company and the values that you've set out as your culture. So hopefully out of a good onboarding process, you're going to have a stronger culture. You're going to have employees that are bought in to what you're trying to do and your values, and you're going to, have this great mutually beneficial relationship with the people that work for you. And then I think one that we all are really keyed in on is, how do I grow and retain people? How do I stop having to rehire for people all the time because they're able to jump down the street for whether it be a different environment or an extra $1 an hour. So a good onboarding process instills a sense in employees that they're valued from the get-go, from before they even start. It instills in them that you value them and that they're a big part of your team, and they want to stay. They build some loyalty from the very moment that they accept an offer. And so having a good onboarding process can just help to retain those employees from the start, and then help to open up doors where they can grow. So we're going to get into how do you materialize all of this in an onboarding process, but wanted to just set out, there's some success measures that are much more than just making sure people have someone to eat lunch with on the first day. There's the long-term goals here with this process. So when we talk about onboarding, if you look at this process, this might mirror some of what you are currently doing. You have a process probably that entails pieces around finding candidates, interviewing candidates, getting them to an offer stage. All of these question marks in the middle might be reminiscent of what you are currently doing. There's not a lot of action happening until a candidate actually starts. And so what we're going to talk about today is starting your onboarding process well before a candidate starts. It starts actually way back during the interview process, in thinking about the kind of things that you're relaying to a candidate and instilling in them even before they get to that first day. So we want you to rethink what that process looks like and think about, how do I think about onboarding someone in a positive way, even way back during the interview process. And onboarding really just refers to the process of integrating someone into your organization, so that the steps that you're taking to integrate them, make them feel welcome, give them the tools and resources that they need to hit the ground running, to upskill, and to become a valuable and contributing employee. So let's get into, what does this look like? There's a few pieces of strategy that we'd like you to think about before you ever start thinking about the steps and the timelines of onboarding somebody. One of those would be just to audit your current process, just to think about what are we currently doing. Maybe you have a written out process, or maybe you have a written out training plan, gathering all of those things together, and then maybe pooling your management team to say, what are we doing from the interview stage all the way through the second or third month of that person's employment to help them have a good first experience here. So take some time to pull that information together, audit your process and see what's happening and maybe what's not happening, because that's really where you're going to start to fill in the pieces. Again, thinking about what's happening during the recruiting phase, what's happening way back when we first start attracting candidates to interview for a position, and then taking them through the offer stages and that pre-hire. So don't just think about what starts on the first day and beyond. Start before they start. Really, it is key that you're giving employees a sense that they're really valued. You have given them an offer. You've taken them through this interview process and giving them an offer because you value them already, even though they haven't started. So giving them that sense is key before they actually hit the door. And then think about who should be involved in this process. It's not necessarily the person that is the hiring manager or the recruiter even. That might be that best friendly face or the best trainer whenever they come in the door. So thinking about your staff and the people that are in that purview of that new employee, and who's going to be the best person to complete the different aspects of an onboarding process. You can probably think about people within your staff that would be a great trainer and very detailed and really taking stuff down to a basic level to help someone understand new processes, versus somebody who's not going to be that great at explaining those things. And so making sure you have the right people, just the same way that you would want to put like your best person in front of someone you're really trying to attract and interview. You want the person that's going to paint the business in the best light and really attract that person to say, yes, I want to work here. Think about that in the same way when you think about onboarding, and who are the people that you want to task with these processes that are going to represent and do this in the best way. And then we'll get into how do you implement this? We're talking about strategies and plans, and this onboarding can be a big piece of planning, but it can also be very simple. So depending on the size of your business and how many employees you have and things like that, don't get overwhelmed with this. Make it function for your business and for your needs, but just not do anything with it. So it's important to do something with onboarding and tailor it to your needs and your business. So thinking about how to timeline this out, and it's a good way to think about onboarding as far as a timeline, because then you can kind of segment pieces of it that need to happen during different phases. And so thinking about it as an interview phase, what happens during that attraction and interview piece of the process, what then happens during an offer process. So you come down to that final candidate, the final decision, you're making an offer. What happens during that phase up until they start? Thinking about what happens on their start date and that first week of work. And then starting to think about that first 30 days, what are some things that need to happen? And then that first 90 days, what are some things that need to happen? Now, this doesn't necessarily mean that you have some sort of probationary 90-day period when they start working or anything like that. It's just really customary that during that first 90 days, the employee's learning a whole lot. You're also learning a whole lot about that person, trying to figure out what their skill set really is, where that fits best within your organization. So there's a continual effort on both of your parts during that first 90 days to just decide their skill set, where the best fit for them is, how they contribute to the organization. And they're deciding as well, is this an organization I want to be a part of long-term? How is this whole process going? Is it what I thought it was going to be? And so again, why it's so important to have a process or a plan around this. So let's talk about more of the ins and outs and the details around what you might do during these different phases. So when we think about the interview phase, and that centers a lot around the job description and attracting candidates, letting them know what you have to offer them as a company, and then deciding, do they have what you want as a company to meet that job, really starts with the job description and reviewing your job description to see if it is accurate, if it's really displaying what you're also displaying in an interview setting. So does the job description read one way, and then what you tell a candidate in an interview setting is something completely different? Are they matching up? That's a first clue for a candidate of, does this company have their stuff together? What they had written down doesn't match what they told me. Is that also going to match what's happening whenever they get into the training process after they start? So you want to do some checks on that whole process of, does our job description match exactly what we're needing and what we're relaying verbally in an interview process? And then is that what we're going to train them on whenever they get here? Making all those things match, those are first clues for candidates around your culture and the attention to detail and how things are running, the operations of the company. So these are all things that are going to give them the first clues as to your company and is this a place I want to be long term? So thinking about your job description, is it easy to read? Is it easy to understand? Again, does it have a bunch of jargon in there that may be sounding legalese, or is it easy for a candidate to understand? And is it accurately depicting what the job is? Making sure you list out duties and requirements. Again, are the requirements all necessary to do the job well? Or did you throw some things on that you thought might be good, but you really don't need them to do the job, or the other employees that do that job don't necessarily have those requirements? Thinking about what you really need to do that job and recruiting accurately for the person that you need. Are any of the requirements too restrictive? Thinking about, again, do I say that this person has to be able to lift 70 pounds when really they're never having to do that? Or the heaviest thing that we get in the back door that has to be unloaded from a truck is only really 30 pounds? Or, so are you disqualifying people from the get-go? Or maybe they're getting scared off because they're reading that thinking that's not something I'd want to do or have the ability to do, when it's really not an actual requirement. So thinking about your whole job description, is it accurate? Making sure that that's shored up. Listing benefits and perks available. So often companies fail to sell a candidate on the benefits of working at their company. That candidate is interviewing you just as much as you are interviewing them. And so thinking about, how are you selling them on benefits and perks of being an employee of yours? One, that's going to help to get them across the finish line, to get them in the door. But as well, they're going to be looking for those later. And so those are some things that they're going to remember, what you've told them initially, and is that coming to fruition after they've been on the job for a few months? So giving them an accurate picture of what that looks like, helping to sell them a little bit more on the opportunities and what they can do with your company. And then giving them just some basic information about the company is also really important. Where have you been? Where have you come from? Where's your company headed? Helping them, again, to buy into the culture and the values and some of the future opportunity that you might be offering at your company is really important during this stage. And then salary information. This is the first brush where you're going to talk about pay terms with a candidate. And so what you say here needs to be accurate. It needs to kind of come to fruition throughout the process. If you throw out a number here and then you give them a lower offer at an offer stage, they're already turned off. They're thinking, what is happening here? That's going back to your values, your culture, your attention to detail. Did they remember the conversation that we had at this stage? So salary information, again, needs to be buttoned up and giving accurate and consistent information throughout the interview stages. So thinking about, what is that? If that's loose and you haven't really figured out how much bonus you might give somebody, or how much, what kind of perks this position might have, or maybe we'll pay for their gas, or maybe we won't, we're not sure. Those are things that you want to have buttoned up to be able to give an accurate picture to a candidate during this stage. And again, all of this materializes into their first thoughts about your company and how vested they're already becoming in a potential job with you. So,
Christy, before we go on to the next one, we did have a question about salary information from Rakita. It's a great question. Do you recommend posting a range in the interview versus a firm salary number?
yeah, I think a range is always appropriate. If you have a firm salary number that everyone in this job makes $15 an hour and that is what we offer, then certainly you can post that. And that's a cut and dry. If someone can take that or not, they know at least to make a decision. But if you can offer a range based on qualifications, education, things like that, that they bring to the table, then I would do a range. An accurate range, we've seen there's been some new legal action in a variety of states and cities where you have to post salary information. And so some companies are posting in this humongous range that, again, doesn't provide you any more clear information than just not posting anything. So post a range that's accurate. I think that does eliminate a lot of questions and gets things on the table initially in a first conversation that can really be good and shore up your process to where you can move ahead with people that are appropriate and not move ahead with people that are just not going to fit within that range. So yeah, good question.
Okay, second question. Is salary negotiation a common practice in most job interviews?
We talk with candidates a lot about negotiating, and I think it should be more common than it is. It just depends on the candidate. In certain levels of jobs, yes, it's much more common. Lower, more entry-level jobs, I think people don't negotiate as much. But as a recruiter, we always see that as a positive on the candidate's side. So I don't ever see negotiating from a candidate, if it's done in the right way, as a negative. And so I think it's getting more and more common as people build their confidence, and definitely at higher levels, managerial positions, negotiating is much more of a common practice. So even if you're not able to negotiate with a candidate, if we offer $15 an hour, there's no negotiation, that's what it is. Take it as a positive that they, looked for something more, or that they're hungry to grow in advance, and that they asked for something additional, even if you weren't able to give it to them. So.
And if I can just add on to that, we do have a lot of candidates that will try to negotiate, and we try to ask them every time, where is this coming from? What is your basis for that? What does that look like? Normally people will not necessarily negotiate during an interview. Usually it's once you give an offer. But if you are hard and set on the $15 an hour, for example, laying that out during the interview, and then also laying out, we do performance evals once a year. Here's when you would be eligible based on performance. You would be able to get a raise. Just sharing that information with them so that they understand where that comes from.
Mm-hmm. Yep. That's part goes back to selling your company, selling those future opportunities, giving them some little nuggets and hope that down the road you do a great job. Here's some opportunities where we could give you some more benefits or salary. Here's some examples of people that currently work for us that have taken advantage of that. So-and-so that's been here for 2 years and has gotten 3 raises, or so-and-so that just promoted into a higher level position. So using those examples to sell your company, again, it's setting up a longevity with that person of, there's some opportunity here. If I just do a good job and show my skills, then this is someplace I could stay long term. So good questions. Okay, so moving on to the interview stage, a lot like that job description stage, but again, what are you relaying during the interview process that's backing up all that initial stuff that they saw, the job description, the benefits information, the salary you posted? Are they getting the same story during the interview process? And this is really important because their candidates are picking up on all those little details that they say, well, they said it was this much in the job description, but then they told me this much. And those discrepancies are red flags for them, just as you would take it as a red flag if they're telling you something that's not represented in their resume. So explaining, keeping things accurate, keeping things consistent through your whole team that's interviewing. Maybe if there's someone on the team that really shouldn't be discussing salary with somebody, make sure that that interviewee knows that, or interviewer knows that, so that they can pass that question off to someone who's more appropriate to discuss that versus giving inaccurate information during an interview. Explaining the whole process and keeping candidates informed along the way. These are clues for candidates around the operations of your company. How do they have things together? Are they rescheduling my interview last minute because they didn't have their meetings set up right? Or does this person even have a resume in front of them when I walk in the door that shows me how detailed they are and that they actually prepared for me coming in today? So explaining the process, keeping candidates informed, having things together, treating them like you'd want to be treated. So if you would frown upon them rescheduling an interview 5 minutes before it's supposed to happen, then they're going to frown on that on your side as well. Again, this is where you have the opportunity to sell yourself and the benefits of your company. And so having lists of benefits, information about the company, just having your pitch together around how you want to represent the company and why this person should want to be a part of it. And so all of that, again, it's just clues as the process goes along as to, is this someplace I really want to be at? So the interview process, just continuation of all that. And then once we get to the offer process, this is where a lot of the rubber meets the road. They're coming down to that, is everything that they've set up until this point, how much can I trust that? And then it's coming to me in writing now or in a verbal offer. I'm making that decision of, do I want to be a part of this organization or not? How much have I seen so far that is helping me to make this decision? So we always recommend a verbal and a written offer letter. That could depend on, the level of position you're hiring for and things like that. But I think people always appreciate having things in writing. And so maybe calling them to say, hey, we'd love to have you as a part of our company. Here's what we'd like to offer you. And then following up with just an email even to say, just to confirm, here's what we talked about. So think about a written offer if that's not something you currently do. Negotiate nicely. Glad that we already talked about this, but we take it as a positive when candidates come back and in the appropriate ways ask for something additional or just ask questions about the offer. And so negotiating nicely, making that a good conversation back and forth, trying to understand their motives is a good way to do that, to understand what they're trying to get at. And then maybe you can offer something that's maybe down the road or comes at a promotional eval time or something like that. Having your paperwork completed and in order, informing people before they start. So this is all getting into once the offer is accepted, what happens right up until that start date. This is where you're doing all the prep work so that when that person walks in the door on the first day, they are feeling valued and like you were prepared for them to come. And so that's getting equipment ordered. Do they need a computer or a uniform or certain tools to get that job done? Are they going to need those on the first day? And are you prepared to have them there? Informing team members that they're coming. Hey, we have hired this person, even informing them of their background. We've hired so-and-so. Here's some of the background that they're coming with. Here's what they're going to be doing so that they're ready when that person walks in the door to say, hi, yeah, we were expecting you. We're so happy that you're here. They can even kick off conversations with, I hear that you've done X, Y, or Z, or you were a graduate of this college or something like that. So that they can greet them and that person just is going to feel like they're supposed to be there, that everyone was prepared and is excited for them to be there. Setting up things like a first day lunch, a tour. You might have some things that they go through on the first day already that probably includes a lot of like I-9 paperwork and things like that they're going to have to fill out as a new employee. And so those are good check the boxes things, but then what do you do beyond that? Making them feel welcome to where they're not going to eat in their car by themselves on the first day. There's someone there to kind of greet them, take them to lunch, show them around the office, help them to feel engaged, meet people, and just feel welcomed in to what's happening. So often people might start, but then there's still meetings happening. There's still processes as normal. Maybe somebody's out of town even on that first day. So helping that person to feel engaged, including them in a meeting, and just bringing them into whatever they can witness so that they can feel like they're contributing, because people want to feel like they're contributing even from the very first day. And then before that first day, you might consider sending them some welcome messages or a welcome kit. Maybe it's a t-shirt or a mug or a uniform that they get at their home before they arrive. At least some instructions for the first day. We've recruited many people that are emailing us as recruiters the day before they're supposed to start saying, do you know where I'm supposed to go on the first day? Or how am I supposed to get in the door? I understand they have a badge system and I won't have a badge. All of those little instructions are really important. So putting yourself in the shoes of that new person to think about, okay, they don't have a badge to get in the door. Do they even know which door to use? Do they know where to park? Do they know what to wear on the first day? Do they understand they don't need to wear the suit and tie that they wore to the interview? This is how we dress normally and would expect them to dress. Can we give them information about all of those things before they get there so that they feel comfortable and prepared for the first day? So that's a big deal because they're going to be wondering all of that. So putting yourself in their shoes can really make them feel welcome and like they're kicking something off on a good note. So then thinking about the first week, this is the time where you're doing a lot of meet and greets, a lot of lunches, but also the time where there's a lot of downtime for this person. They don't have work to do. They don't have expectations that everyone else in the office has. And so there's a lot of downtime where if they're left to kind of sit and think, they're thinking, I'm not contributing anything right now. And that can make people feel really lonely and weird. So helping people to kind of have a good schedule of what they should be doing during the week, giving them some tasks to complete. Maybe that's even just watching some training videos or something like that, but at least there's things that they're checking off a list. They're reviewing policies. They're in meetings with certain people, just witnessing things that are going on. They're shadowing and watching. Assigning a buddy is a great way to make sure that this first week goes smoothly. And so someone who's really assigned to watch out for that new person, making sure that if they are sitting idle or they look like they just really are floundering and don't have anything to do, to pull them into something. Getting paperwork completed and things like that are all check the box type activities. But really the first week takes a bit more thought process around a schedule and how to make that person feel included and valued, even when they don't have a lot of expectations or work on their plate. So a good schedule can help you with this. And then that schedule can kind of get looser, but help you again with 30 days and 90 days out. So when you're thinking about 30 days out, you're thinking about maybe just some one-on-ones with a manager or that buddy again to check in on the progress. Maybe it's a weekly one-on-one to just see how are things going. Are things happening like I'm expecting them to happen as a manager? Is that what the employee is feeling as well? Redirecting the process if needed. Or, I've been trying to get a meeting with this person that was on my list to meet with. I just can't get on their calendar. Redirecting to another person or making phone calls. Making sure that they meet all the relevant stakeholders that they need to. So 30 days is a good time to do a lot of those meet and greets, introduce that person and have them get time on people's calendars, get a good sense for what's happening at different parts of the organization, shadowing around different parts of the organization, so that they have a good sense of how the entire process is working, things like that. And then looking at tools and systems, or is there some upskilling needed on certain software or things that they need to learn in order to, be skilled at their job, and how is that getting done? Are there training programs? Is it, computerized webinars? What does that look like and how are they getting that done? And this first 30 days is a good time to do that. And then looking out to 90 days. This is where you're looking at really at the end of the 90 days, are they hitting the ground running? We've been continuing those one-to-one check-ins. And so I'm assessing, are things on track? Are things happening as they need to be? What kind of skills are they materializing? And maybe there's some skills that I didn't necessarily see, but would make them an asset in different parts of the company. And so assessing what that means, or addressing areas that are lacking. Here's some things that I thought you would be coming in with or might upskill with a little quicker. And we need to have those conversations in this 90 days to redirect or get some more training on certain things. 90 days, like I said, you might not have a probationary period for your hires. Some companies do, some companies don't. But it's pretty understood that within the first 90 days on both sides of the table, that everybody's really trying to skill and assess what's happening. And so this is a good time to have those conversations without a lot of animosity or conflict around, hey, things are not quite happening as fast as I thought, or there's some great things happening that we weren't even aware of that we could use in another way. So take advantage of the 90 days to be having those process conversations. And then this is a good time to set expectations for 6 months and a year. So you may have a formal evaluation process where they're going to have, evaluation of their performance at a certain time, or you may not. And this is a good time to say, okay, at 6 months after your hire, we're going to do this again. And we're going to have a conversation, a good check-in and review again. We'll do it again at a year. And set expectations around what should be happening and what goals you would have for the employee and that they might have for themselves. Put those things in writing. And so you can set those things out on the calendar, go back to your notes and decide what progress is being made. So again, taking this all the way from the recruiting process to 90 days, think of all of that time as onboarding. And a good checklist for this, we've actually created for ASB TDC. And so you can get this checklist via one of your coaches that you're working with. I think they would probably all have access to it if you let them know that HR, you've had some HR questions and onboarding something you're particularly interested in. They should be able to pull this out of some of their resources. And so everything we've gone through today is kind of lined out for you in a checklist format where you can print this off and utilize this to kind of enhance your own process or create a new one. So ask your coaches about that, and I'm sure they'd be happy to provide it. We've also created a few other HR checklist toolkits like this that they have access to, one on interview techniques, one on just kind of that first day and paperwork checklist type of a thing. If you're struggling with what do we even need to have people fill out on the first day. So there's a couple of those things out there if you want to ask your coaches about that. Okay. Well, I feel like I flew through that. So I would love any more questions that you might have around onboarding or things that I breezed past that you want to get more in depth on. Again, Beth and I are happy to help with this topic further. If you're struggling with actually creating out a process, we are happy to help you do that. At Skills Lab Training, we work with companies on a variety of different fronts, whether it's helping to upskill their workforce and leadership, but then also looking at process and putting things into place that'll be a program for perpetuity rather than just floundering through things on an as needed basis. So don't hesitate to reach out to us. Any more questions?
Let me see, we've got one. As an interviewee, what do you find beneficial asking an employee during an interview? So as an interviewee, asking, what do you find beneficial asking an employer during an interview?
Asking an employer. So if I were a candidate, what questions would I ask an employer? We coach candidates a lot to definitely come in with a list of questions. We coach them to do their research. And so if there's anything that's in the news recently about your company or your industry, financial statements, anything like that, we coach candidates to do their research, be looking at all that stuff, and then ask questions about that during an interview. So be prepared if there's some things that are just hot topics within your industry, or there's something that your company has put out recently, be prepared for those types of questions. Because I think those are really valuable. You'd want to know what's happening and what the future of the company or the industry is. I always coach candidates as well to ask about, the interviewer's personal experiences. What are the biggest challenges they've had at the company? What are they most excited about that's coming up with the company? What kind of, how have they taken advantage of, whether it's training or promotional opportunities, to just get their personal take on their experience at the company and get an insight into what that might mean for me as a candidate. So on the flip side of that, there is a toolkit that we've created that you can get from your coach that is about good questions as an interviewer to ask a candidate. So if you're interested in that, you can get a hold of that.
Okay. And then here's a question. As an HR consultant, do you handle tax, workers' comp guidance?
We do not handle tax and workers' comp things. I would definitely kind of consult an accountant on that. But all good things to make sure you're up and up on. So that's not something that's within our wheelhouse, but we could certainly help you find the right person if you need to.
Okay, just a couple of takeaways that I wanted to share. We don't realize how important the onboarding process is, but we've all started a job that maybe this area was a little lacking in, I think. And so as we think through, you don't have to buy, expensive gifts or have complicated processes. I think it's as simple as just one, staying in touch with people. A lot of candidates we've noticed drop off between the interview and they've received an offer, or from the offer to the start date, they drop off, they find another job. And if you're staying in touch with them, almost to the point that, you're just checking in with them every week and making sure everything goes good and just staying in touch, a simple note or a letter from the CEO just to say, hey, welcome, it goes a long way. You would really be surprised. I think people just want to be kept informed. And so this process, once you have a process in place, everybody gets it, they know it, and then they're like, hey, I want to be a buddy to the new person, or they see a new person walking around the office or the organization, they're like, hey, so nice to meet you, I know you're new, that kind of thing. So it just continues to perpetuate a really good culture for your people. If you have any questions, like Christy said, we work with people on this kind of stuff all the time. We're happy to reach out to us. We can set up a free consultation to kind of answer any questions you may have. But then also, if you'd like for us to look at your program, we'd be happy to do that.
All right. Well, thanks, Julie. Thanks for having us, and thanks for everybody attending.
Yes, thank you to everyone for attending. This was just great information. And I recognized several of the folks on that are already clients. But if you're not a client of the ASBTDC and you would like counseling or guidance that is at no cost to you, just visit our website. Every page in the upper right-hand corner has a get a consultation button, and we will get back with you very quickly. Also, you can reach us at our office phone or by email. So we hope that you have learned as much as I have actually from this webinar, and that you will join us for our other presentations. You can use the QR code to find out about future webinars and in-person workshops, or you can go to our website and we have an events page there. And thanks again to Christy and to Beth for this great presentation, and we will see you next time.